Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. I was really happy to find this in the mail the other day. This is a Reptiles magazine with the cover story, Keeping the Ultimate Constrictor, an article that I wrote about keeping and breeding red-tailed boas. Today I want to give you a quick peek inside of the magazine, looking at the article and some of my photos. And then I'm going to say a little bit more about magazines in general and how influential and important magazines were on my development as a child and young adult in several different areas, including reptiles. So be sure to stay tuned. So this is the article. It's entitled Keeping the Ultimate Constrictor, and this is one of my Peruvian boas on the cover, a male who was born here about 8 or 9 years ago. And so it's a really in-depth article. It's about 10 pages or so, including pictures. So a lot of information in here. And in addition to the text, which has a lot of secrets and a lot of tips that I've learned from others, as well as figured out on my own over the last 20 years or so, there's a lot of really nice pictures. And as you probably know, photography is one of my big hobbies in addition to reptiles, and so I always like to combine the two and hopefully get really nice pictures of my boas. And this is a really nice photo spread. I really like the quality. I like the layout that the editor put together is really beautiful. It really sets off the image as well, and the images really nicely tell the story. And then in the text itself, I talk a lot about what boas are, or what red-tailed boas are, a lot about the husbandry of keeping red-tails, and then a lot about breeding of true red-tails. So if you're looking for a nice general introduction to red-tailed boas, I highly recommend checking out this article. And as you can see, it goes on quite long. These are some of my baby boas. So again, really happy with the article. And this is actually the first issue of Reptiles magazine I've had in quite a while, well over a decade, to be honest. And overall, I'm really like the magazine. Like I said, it's been quite a while since I've seen it, but the quality is as good as it's always been. A lot of interesting articles in here. A really good article about keeping turtles as pets, a lot of considerations about different types of turtles and turtle husbandry in general. There's an article about different types of heating solutions, an article about herping in Ecuador, as well as an article about the Malaysian cat gecko, which is a species I had never even heard of. So Reptiles is a really good magazine. What I really like about Reptiles is it targets not just beginning herpetoculturalists, but also really seasoned, advanced people. So there's always something in each issue that's going to appeal to pretty much any herper. And not just keeping herps as pets in captivity, but also information about herping in the field. So highly recommend you check out Reptiles. So Reptiles magazine goes back about 30 years. And I first started reading with the #1 issue back in 1993 with the green iguana on the cover. And I subscribed faithfully until about the year 2000. And at that point, I was just kind of busy with some other stuff. I didn't renew my subscription. I continued to keep Reptiles. I kind of forgot about Reptiles magazine, to be honest. And so I kept every single issue for quite a while. And so I had all of these magazine organizers full of issues of Reptiles magazine, and it was probably several dozen issues. And unfortunately, about maybe 15 years ago when I was moving, I decided I was going to get rid of most of them. I don't know why. I just trying to clear up space, for my family that was on the way. But I only saved about a dozen issues, and I really regret getting rid of those old issues. But sometimes we just have to clear out space and we get rid of old stuff. So I got rid of those. Didn't even sell them. I just threw them away, unfortunately. I did keep some of my favorite issues, and I'm really happy that I kept those. Probably my favorite issue of Reptiles during the early years between 93 and 2000 is this one. This is the November 1996 issue, and as you can see, it's the special boa constrictor issue. And this obviously was very influential on my future in reptile keeping. And the cover story was written by Dick Bartlett, who is, a legend in the field of reptile keeping. He's still very active and he still writes a lot of stuff online. But he wrote this great article with amazing photographs, and it was very influential. And was probably one of the reasons why I went on to become a specialist in locality boas. And so this is the article. So he talks a lot about red-tail boas and non-red-tail boas, what the differences are, as well as the husbandry and breeding, and beautiful, beautiful photos. This is honestly probably the first time I've saw a lot of these locality boas. I'd heard of some of them. I heard of Argentine boas. I had heard of true red tails, but I never saw an article that just put them all together so nicely. And I would look at the pictures in this magazine again and again and again, and just, you know, have dreams about them. It was, you know, such amazing looking snakes. And the centerfold is the Kala albino boa. This is back when the Kala albinos were probably the only available morph in boa constrictors. They had only been around on the market for a few years, and they were still selling for many, many thousands of dollars. And at that point, there really wasn't the morph boa versus locality boa schism that we have today. It was just boa constrictors, and people didn't really even call them locality boas. You can see these different subspecies of boas: Hog Island boa, you know, true red tails, some Mexican boas, etc. But again, they weren't really known as locality boas. They were just different types of boas from different localities. I'm sure that, you know, it was like a locality concept. I mean, calling it an Argentine boa or a Hog Island boa, you know, it obviously denotes that it's from that locality. But people didn't really think of it as locality, at least, you know, as far as I can tell. But, you know, beautiful pictures, great article. You know, definitely influential on me down the line. And you're looking at these old magazines, it just really brings it back, some of these old ads for people that, you know, were selling reptiles back then, and the way that the herp market and the herp hobby was back in the 90s. You know, it's definitely like a stroll down memory lane. And, you know, I just wish I wasn't so busy. I could probably spend a day or two just going through my old magazines and, you know, thinking about life the way it was, you know, a few decades ago. But anyway, I'm glad I kept this issue, and very influential on me, and I still really like looking at these pictures in the November '96 issue of Reptiles magazine. Thought I'd grab a snake, put the magazines away, and look at the real thing in the flesh. This is a Pacalpa Peruvian red tail, born here back in 2021. Really nice sub-adult female that I'm growing up as a holdback. Hopefully a future breeder a few years down the line. I wrote my boa constrictor article in the spring and submitted it to Reptiles along with the photos, and I was happy that so many of the photos were put into the article. And you know, a lot of articles in magazines only have 1 or 2 photos, but what's really great about Reptiles is it's so full of photos. The quality of the photos is really high, so if you want a magazine just, you know, to look at really nice pictures, the Reptiles magazine is something you should definitely check out. And so my article, I received word that it was going to be published. I was really super happy about that. And the editor sent me a PDF copy of my article. Looked great. But it was in a PDF form, and it wasn't the whole magazine. It was just the article itself without any of the other articles or magazine content. So of course I wanted to get the whole article. And so I looked quite a bit at local bookstores. Unfortunately, a lot of my local bookstores have shut down. As we know, Borders Books and Music, which was my favorite bookstore back in the 90s, shut down many years ago. And even Barnes & Noble, there are not that many of them anymore. You know, we had one nearby me, you know, just about 10 or 20 minute drive away, but that one closed down about 5 years ago. They even shut down the one in San Francisco. So the nearest Barnes & Noble to me is now about an hour away. It's really unfortunate because I remember as a young adult in my late teens, early 20s, I would spend a lot of time at Borders and Barnes & Noble just looking at the books and looking at the magazines. And they had so many magazines back then. And a lot of these magazines in reptiles, in the area of the reptile hobby, as well as other topics, were very influential on me and, you know, gave me knowledge I couldn't get by other means. And I remember at the time, there must have been about 4 or 5 different reptile magazines. There was the Vivarium, there was Reptile and Amphibian, there was Fauna, Captive Breeding. But Reptiles magazine was the one that seemed to appeal to the broadest swath of the herp hobby. And it's the only one, as far as I know, that is still being published. And so Reptiles magazine, I'm not exactly sure why it's so hard to find in bookstores. I don't think they have it in bookstores anymore. I don't know if that's because the bookstores just don't carry these magazines anymore. I know that Reptiles changed ownership a few years ago. Not exactly sure, but you can get Reptiles. It's still really easy to get by subscription. And that's what I ended up doing. I got a subscription. It's for a year, 6 issues. It was only $19.99. So, you know, a little over $3 an issue. You can't beat that. You can't even get McDonald's these days for $3. So, you know, the price is definitely worth it. You can get the print copy for $19.99. You can get a digital subscription for $14.99. In the digital subscription, you get a PDF and you can download the whole issue, and you can print it out yourself, or you get both for $24.99, the print copy and the digital copy. And with the digital copy, apparently you get the last 3 years of back issues as well. So if you want to get my reptile article, it's in the July-August issue, which is, I believe, is still available. But if you're watching this and a few months or a few years have gone by, and you still want to get that issue, you can get it simply by subscribing to the digital or the digital plus print and getting the back issues. And as long as it's not more than 3 years in the future, you'll be able to access my article in the July-August 2024 issue. So something to consider if you're thinking of subscribing. And like I said, I would highly recommend subscribing. It's a lot of really good information. There's something for everyone in every issue, and it's very reasonably priced. As I mentioned, Reptiles magazine seems to be the only reptile magazine that's still being published, which is definitely a shame. And it seems like magazines in general are kind of going the way of the dinosaur. And as I mentioned, it's really unfortunate because I remember as a kid and even as a young adult in my late teens, early 20s, waiting by the mailbox, checking the mailbox to see if my magazine was going to arrive. And it was always really enjoyable to get a magazine, not just about reptiles, but about pretty much any other topic. There was a magazine, a photography magazine I liked called Outdoor Photographer, and I looked into that one about a month ago. Unfortunately, that one shut down about a year ago, so you can't get Outdoor Photographer magazine anymore, which is a shame. Unfortunately, as time goes on, probably more and more magazines are going to fold, and we'll lose the ability to get information from magazines. And you might say, well, we have the internet now, it's much quicker, it's much more immediate. And that's certainly true. There's a lot of good information from the internet, but it's just not the same thing. You just don't get the same quality of information. You don't get information that's been edited and curated the way that information in the magazines is. And there's also the tactile experience of holding a physical paper magazine in your hand and turning the pages and enjoying the pulpy smell of freshly printed periodicals. And the internet will unfortunately never satisfy that need. So I'd like to hear from you guys. How many of you guys subscribe to Reptiles magazine or have subscribed at some point in the past? And how many of you guys subscribe to magazines in general? What do you think about magazines? Has watching this episode made you think nostalgically about reading magazines in your earlier life? And have I convinced you to go pick up a magazine, either Reptiles or something else? Anyway, please comment below. I'd love to hear all that you have to say about magazines. And I hope you'll go and check out my article in the July-August issue of Reptiles magazine. As always, shoot me any questions or comments you have. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.